Alrighty, hello everyone folks, and good morning. Welcome to another tier list slash categorization of the finishers in Tactics Ogre Reborn. So, a couple of things to understand before we get started. One of the notions that I see a hell of a lot when it comes to the finishers in this game is that one or the other is just directly more powerful than the other, and this one, category has all the amazing finishers, and, this other one is just dinky and doesn't do the damage. So all of them actually work very, very similarly. They're very situational. So to that end, we're going to go look at the damage calculators. So this is kind of a recessions thing here. So long story short, it looks a little bit like this. Every one of them will essentially scale off of strength or dexterity, slightly more in one direction or the other. They will have an equipment multiplier, they'll have a defender's equipment multiplier, and they will have an action value, aka the attack score of the move itself. So essentially, like, if they use Flaming Fist, they will have 100 attack going into the whole thing. They will scale it off of your attributes. The Defender's armor, in this case, like their strength, would guard it a little bit less than their vitality. And then the equipment will be multiplied in its own way. So these will go a lot of different ways. Now, in the case of something like Flaming Fists, Howling Rage, Retribution, all of that kind of thing, Flaming Fists will also be modified by its element. Rapid Strike will also have a debuff. Something like Retribution will also have a debuff, will also have a higher cost to compensate for the higher incoming attack value. To point this out up here, so finishers... like I mentioned over here, finishers with an element will modify stat overhead by 100% if the finisher element is strong against the defender's affinity. While there is more to it, we can effectively say that this just doubles their initial attack power if they're going and they're hitting with that element. This is why, for example, when you hit with something like Retribution, that sucker's just freaking deleted. So this is why, again, it depends on the situation. Whether or not something is incredibly powerful or not will, depend quite a bit. Like, for example, Overwhelm by itself is really solid, but also very expensive, where something like Heart Crusher is situationally almost as powerful, if not potentially better, just on account of the longer range. If it's versus an Earth target. So there's a lot of little bits and pieces to potentially consider here, and you'll also notice that many of these double attacks are literally just attacking twice with your weapon. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go over to the finishers themselves now, but I will include a link to this chart with all of this information, just to point out a few that are notable. Stuff like Devastate on spellbooks, Armageddon over here on whips, as well as Overwhelm on daggers that we already saw earlier, Ghost Whale for katanas. What else here? Heaven's Scorn over on the blowguns. Death Whale over on crossbows, as well as there was one more here somewhere. Where was it? Grand Cross on the so actually Palpion Reel and Grand Cross. So a lot of the really expensive ones, typically these will be the 70 cost finishers, are usually going to have that higher attack value. Which essentially will directly mean that, yeah, it is directly more powerful, but it's also getting past defenses a lot more, so in many cases you'll see really runaway results from things like Papillon Reel compared with Rending Gale. That being said, again, all of this stuff is fairly situational, but just know, as far as if you want to make an argument over, oh, this is directly the most neutrally powerful thing in the game, Armageddon. But whips win that one. I saw somebody saying that they're literally making videos about how whips were weak. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue on here. So, back to the finishers themselves. So, the actual kind of situation behind a lot of these will oftentimes be very different from just direct power. So, like, for example, when it comes to solid standouts, I would easily start off with something like Vile Wound. It doesn't necessarily have the element, it does have a fantastic debuff, but it's not only the cheapest sword move, but it's also going to be very consistent at landing its poison. I believe the calculated odds turned out to be somewhere in like the 30 to 50% ballpark, depending on what it was. I don't believe that chart says it, but I remember that coming up a little while ago. Either way, you can't really raise the debuff odds on your finishers, but it's something that will come up very regularly. Like, for example, the Knight Commander finishers will almost always land theirs. But as far as the As far as the Vile Wound move there, it's something that is consistently solid at taking out stuff that's way above your level in various situations. It's something that's consistently going to be available right from the beginning of the game. It's something that a hell of a lot of characters can use. Swords are a solid second slot weapon option. So either way, personally, my favorite one's right over there. It has nothing to do with direct power or anything like that. All right, next up, just to set up the categories, as far as standard elemental punishes go, where's Flaming Fist at? Flaming Fist is going to go right here. So elemental punishes as a category are typically going to be those ones that are just a standard, standard 100 damage finisher move. Who cares about the scaling? You basically just use this because you need a fire move right here to go take advantage of that weakness bonus. So essentially, you find an ice target, you punch it with your flaming fists. Nice solid stuff over there. So you'll also see others in this category, like let's see, not Retribution. That one's amazing. Stuff like. The book Earth finisher. I will admit that as far as the book finishers, they come up so like honestly every book finisher that's got an element is just going to go right here. Despite the damage bonuses and things like that, books themselves are a fairly weak weapon. They're going to be on the more niche side, and most of the classes that are using them are typically not going to be powerhouses in and of themselves. So unless you're, for example, running something along the lines of a grimoire on like a Lord Denim or something like that, you're typically not going to see any insane results off their finishers. They do start off with a fairly rare Earth finisher and stuff like that, but just in general, they aren't going to be getting the insane results of many of the other ones. However, they are still, a one-slot weapon. One thing that I will note, though, is that they do significantly better against certain racial types depending on the book. Most of the books are essentially running the exact same stats with a different racial bonus. It's a weird quirk of that category, but it's part of the reason that their finishers are kind of meh across the board, but they have their kind of glowing moment early on. When you first get spellbooks, they will look amazing. They'll kind of drop off in the end game, and then Grimoire kind of takes over a little bit, but not too much. Anyway, we're just going to leave that over there. Okay, next up to cover defensive plays, that's going to be something like Shadowpin. So that's going to be like Shadowpin's going to come in with a stop effect that's got a really decent chance to hit. Typically, this is going to be really handy because of casters being, they kind of need a defensive oh crap move. So if they get rushed down by birds or something like that, Shadowpin, run away, get out of there, that kind of thing. Typically, the argument immediately follows of like, oh man, well, I already set up all my summons beforehand, and I'm going to go ahead and immediately just delete that. Depends on your situation. If you're going back in New Game Plus into story mode, yeah, sure, absolutely go for it. Mega Chickens and post-game and whatever else, it's like a 50-50 on whether that's not going to work. In a lot of cases, just having that wiggle room, having that option to be able to disable something and run away is just going to be the safer play, as opposed to just hoping that you have all of your turns lined up to be able to rush down that guy right now. So either way, solid option right there. Actually, Tyrant Mace is going to go up to Elemental Punishes as well, being something that's going to be very helpful during story mode, but then in the post-game you rarely use it except for on somebody like Berserkers, as far as countering birds go. Next up, we're going to have multi-hitters. So these are going to be, for example, your Double Fang over here, your... no, not this one. Where are you at? Where's Rending Gale? Basically, all of your multi-hit finishers are going to be nearly the same. So here's the Rending Gale over here. Here's the Mantis Strike over here. Where our Swift Thrash is going to go over here. So the two-hit multi-hitters are really good if you happen to be in a position where... Actually, yeah, here we go. Swallowtail as well. Those are going to be really good if you happen to have physical and crit cards already set up and are able to quickly rush something down. They're typically not very expensive, kind of just barely above the medium mark there, usually around the 50 mark there. And typically are going to be really good at multiplying criticals, but usually they're not... they're just kind of a situational case. Almost all of them will work the same. Actually, wait, where's the instrument one? There was an instrument one as well somewhere in here before I forget it. Here it is. Whatever this one was called. Actually, there was a book one, too. Where's Devastate? I think that's what Devastate was. The book ones... Truth be told, the book ones sound so similar. It's like Devastate, Eviscerate, Annihilate. Like, I swear it was written by a freaking Dalek. But yeah, I don't remember much about them. I had an ex like a decade ago that was super into Doctor Who. I don't remember much aside from all of the 8 endings on top of things. Anyway, so most of these are just going to be their own pile down here because they basically work the same. And then we've got some that are just in the pile of, well, it's a nice square anyway. So those are going to be the ones that you typically really won't be using under most situations. So for example, there's a book finisher that has a chance to inflict leaden. Like, it can help with birds, I guess, but they're not going to outrun the birds anyway. So it's not necessarily going to help in that case. It's just in that pile of, like, it's element neutral, you're not getting any massive bonus for it, you're not really using a debuff that, Shadow Pin wouldn't do a better job for there. So we're just going to drop it over there. Defensive play, I would say Dark Weight is actually going to go in... Actually, no, wait, is that Dark Weight? Actually, both the Dark Weight and Slumber Shot can go into the defensive play pile. Both of them are... Yeah, there we go, they're Slumber Shot. So those are usually going to be those options of, like, you need that thing to stop flying, you need that thing to stop acting. The Slumber Shot in particular is really good for taking out targets that have hyper armor on them, so like golems or dragons or knights or something like that. If they're asleep, they can't act, so it's a nice solid kind of a play to get them out of the way. Alright, so let's see what we got next. We got, I think this was the stop move on the instruments. We'll go ahead and slap that sucker over there. Where is, before I forget it, where is Dullbind? I mean, okay. Here's the thing. I'm putting Dullbind in the bottom tier here, but here's the thing. It's okay. It is exactly okay. It is the most mediocre finisher that you can get. It still manages to get past defenses better than their normal shot, but it doesn't get, for example, any debuff with it. It doesn't necessarily get the stunning effect or something like that you're probably running with a Damask crossbow or whatever. It's just exactly okay. It is the most basic frickin' attack that you can do with a crossbow. In most cases, you're going to be far better off doing something like the stop shot instead. What the hell was it? Why am I completely blanking on the name right now? But basically the crossbow's third finisher is going to have a chance to inflict stop, which will basically be the same thing as this at almost the same cost, while having the chance to stop them in their tracks, which is way the hell more useful. Little side note, by the way, if you may notice, all of these are cropped out in different sizes. Look, a lot of them were looking pretty about... Then about halfway, I just got kind of lazy about it. So, it is what it is. Okay, so, alright, next up, solid standouts. Let's go ahead and put, actually, Cyclone Saber is one of the biggest improvements to finishers in Reborn. So Cyclone Saber not only gives two-handers a ranged attack, finally, but it's also just a really great way to delete Earth units. It kind of takes over for the early game dominance of something like Heart Crusher, which that's going to get to go up here for that particular reason. Like, Heart Crusher is just... Like, on a light weapon, it's got a long-range sting that specifically hurts specific targets. Range is good enough to keep you safe if you don't want to get into an actual fight. Earth Punish is just solid all its own, but it's nice, cheap, long-range, just great package overall. Same thing for Cyclone Saber, for all of the same exact reasons, except now it's on a way heavier weapon. So either way, good stuff there. Actually, same thing goes for just wind. Definitely stacks for finishers. I don't know why ice was considered the overpowered one in the early game of the game's release, because wind absolutely slaps for its finishers. Because Scattershot over on the gun finishers is practically the only one you ever want to use. It's a double shot move that's like, granted, it is a multi-hitter, but due to the fact that it's an element, if this hits on the right element, like if you're either your wind or the other guy's earth, you're going to see some great results out of Scattershot. It brings in the full bonuses of the weapon without suffering from armor as much. So just great results on it in most situations. Next up for solid standouts, we're going to have Death Whale. Easily one of the strongest ranged attacks in the game. Essentially, it's a 3-shot multi-hitter. In its particular case, though, you want to apply a Breach or a Fear first. It's going to do... more than likely, it's going to do 1 damage when you aim with it normally. However, if you manage to actually land this thing on a Breach or Fear, that thing's just gone. Same thing actually applies for Spiral Scourge as well. It's just one of those ones that goes from doing mediocre to absolutely just ludicrous numbers. It's a very heaven or hell kind of ability, but it's so easy to get it up there. Again, Breach or Fear will do the job just fine. In the case of something like Spiral Scourge, it's going to do the job a lot better. I'm actually going to put it up there for that particular reason. Wherein just like a physical and a crit, and that's it. They're just running around blendering things. Really solid on Valkyries and stuff like that, where they can constantly keep that funded. So like they can just start tearing ass through entire groups with that. The one downside about Spiral Scourge is its range is weird. It's a 2 to 3 tile attack, though it's the thing is originally this had a thing where it was like firing directly from your spear. This time around it is firing from above instead, so it's got better forgiveness, but if you're used to the original version it just feels weird. Anyway, weird detail. Moving on. Next up, Sun Blossom. This one I'll probably get some disagreement on. I really like Sun Blossom. So it's a 2 HK finisher that inflicts False Strike, and has a really good chance to inflict it anyway. So it's basically the Swordmaster transferring their dodge ability to everybody else. While it is a solid elemental punish, in its particular case, I just found that whenever it came to endgame enemies and such, like, they really, really suffered from that False Strike. So personally, I found that this was typically the one that I was liking the most. Like for example, technically you get way more power out of their Dark version, but it doesn't have that False Strike, and just in most situations I found it a lot easier to set up with the False Strike early and then move on to the punishes later. Okay, Retribution. For the fist finishers, technically an elemental punish, but my god, this thing just deletes anything in San Bronza. Just slapping a fist on Azelston and just having him punching down angels was really hilarious, so that's going over there. Alright, let's see, we got our what the hell is it? Our just standard axe finisher goes into the elemental punish category. If there's a bird, you hit it with that. Frigid Blast, same thing. Really good elemental finishers on the blowguns there. Actually, okay, on the blowguns, all three of their finishers are really good punishes. It's just that their other punish, or their other move over there happens to also have poison, so yeah, you know where my bias is leaning on that, because, yeah, that's just like, your poison didn't land, okay, you got another chance to poison with this. Long-range finisher with poison, it's just great stuff. Actually, it occurs to me, Overwhelm, this must be Overwhelm. Okay, so Overwhelm, again, probably going in the solid standouts. With daggers, just Overwhelm is basically, whereas this one's got a little bit longer range and has that elemental factor, Overwhelm is neutral. It's one of the few that's literally just like full-on delete mode, actual power move, you know? Actually, same thing for Howling Rage. Like, it's also a neutral finisher, but this thing just insane range. Great power on it. Typically, it's basically Wave Fist from Final Fantasy Tactics with twice the range. It's great. Actually, top of the elemental punish pile, I just want to give a shout out here to Infinity, one that also typically gets ignored because it's the final axe finisher. One of those ones that gets a lot of extra damage on its primary attack, but also a rare earth finisher. There's a lot of scary things that are lightning element towards the later half of the game. And yeah, this just makes them gone, so great stuff there. Let's see, Brimstone Hail. I would actually kind of class this as a defensive play. The thing is, I know that a lot of times I tend to play crossbow and shield builds defensively, and Brimstone Hail is a great way to serve as an elemental punish, sure. Like, arguably it's more there. But this, with a crit, ends up knocking stuff out of position very well. It's a nice way to knock stuff sideways. Like, just basically customize your knockback at a long range. It's like, normally when there's a finisher, it doesn't splash. In their particular case, it splashes, gives you the ability to move stuff around, and again, it has the longest range of these. So, like, something like Crimson Reach I would put into the Standouts pile, just due to the fact that it's doing the same thing, but with a better kind of initial bonus to it. It's punishing that element, it's hitting in an AoE, it's repositioning stuff. Stuff like Brimstone Hail will have longer range, it's better for defensive repositioning, at least in my opinion. Let's see, the Stun Punch move. Yeah, you're totally not using this. What else? Ruination? I mean, it's good early on, I guess. I would say, okay, I'm going to put it under defensive play because in Ruination's case, while it is basic, it does allow you to stick to 1 to 2 tile range and convert back to that once you have long range spears in the late game if you're not running status spears. Okay, both the non-elemental gun finishers can just go down here. Atonement is a great punish. But yeah, Stagger and Misstep, you're never going to bother using these. They're not cheap enough to really necessarily really go down that road. I think this one was. I think this one was. What's it called? Why am I blanking on so much stuff today? The breaching one. I know it's wind related. What the hell is it? Should I just look that up? You know what? Let's just go look that up. What the hell am I forgetting here? What's it called? Where are you? Scythe Wind. There we go. Like, I know we got a windy name on you. I don't know why this wasn't made to wind. I guess because wind is already kicking ass over here. But yeah, great. Where the hell did I put it? So it's up here because it basically gives you access to the Breach Spear without needing the Breach Spear throughout the entire game. So if you need something suddenly breached, there you go. You got the option. Elemental Punish for the Lightning Swords, yes. You basically got low power and high power versions of this. That is its primary function. It technically does more damage, but in most cases, most of the two-hander finishers are just kind of solid for either speed or range. Like in most cases, if you just needed a basic attack, if you just needed a kind of quick attack move, I would say you just go for the Sonic Blade. It's nice, it's cheap, it's a great way to kind of hit and run. That's why it's going under defensive play here. Whereas something like Cyclone Saber specifically sticks out because of its long-range availability. Actually, you know what? I almost want to put it under multi-hitter, because it is a single-target attack, but it's also really fast to throw out there. It's practically free. Which one of these is freaking Stone Bloom? I forget. I think this one was Stone Bloom, in which case, again, defensive play goes and breaks stuff down. Skyrend. Right, which one was Skyrend? Like, all the Katana ones look really similar. Alright, Mistral Edge, again, defensive play. It's got a, solid debuff on there. You're not going to use that one as much. Papillon Reel definitely goes into solid standouts. Like, it is an elemental punish, but, like, that thing hurts. That thing hurts a ton. And there's a lot of dark targets, especially in the final boss kind of area. It'll end up flying up somewhere closer to here. Relatively, it doesn't feel as expensive due to the fact that most sword classes are typically not very MP intensive. So either way, it's something that's usually going to be available. Again, final boss, like, this thing just breaks it. Actually, same thing for this one over here. It goes right next to it. Trinity Pulse. Like, if you get a Breach Trinity Pulse on that guy, like, goodbye. The rest of them are mostly just elemental punishes, except for this one, which what we'll actually do is class that as a multi-hitter. Sorry, I got a little bit off track there because I kind of sort of did this thing where I ran out of space because I forgot to update to my new memory card. Anyway, okay, so back to it. So yeah, I'm classing that as a multi-hitter because you're usually just using this to hit in an AoE to inflict a lot of setup for your casters. So I'm going to class that as a multi-hitter, even though it technically isn't. Okay, then we got our slowing move on our whips. We'll pop that sucker over there. I think this one was Skyrend. Yeah, you can just kind of sit over there. Interesting thing on Skyrend is that it actually does have better vertical tolerance, so that's nice. It probably doesn't come up that often, but it's nice. It exists, Wait, that wasn't the slowing whip finisher. I think that was the thrashing one. Was this the stunning one? Whatever. They all will basically go into that same category. There we go. One of them slows, one of them stuns, one of them... yeah, we already got the multi-hitter over here. Usually it's Armageddon that you want. Where the hell's Armageddon? Is this one Armageddon? Hold on. We gotta find Armageddon, because that has to go to the top of the standouts. So we got this one over here. This one has to be Armageddon. So Armageddon goes to the top of the standouts. Just like... if you ever wanted something insane, if you've gotten Princess, or you've gotten Witcher, or anything like that, or even Lord, put a whip on them, max out that whip, give them meditate, give them whatever other skills you'd like, whether it's Princess's Whim, Phalanx, whatever else. Have them just run around just deleting stuff with Armageddon all day. It's one of the few that's legitimately just like a full-on deletion move. Okay. Actually, both of the elemental ones for the instruments get to go up here. They're both water and wind, which wind is a bit more common. Water you don't see that often, so it's a great punish in a lot of situations, but they're in a massive AoE. So either way, the class that they come on has meditate at all times. They can fund these massive AoE finishers all the time. They're wonderful. Okay, Advent Sign, great elemental punish, a bit oddly specific because you probably won't be using them in that scenario. Nightblade is also, I would say, a standout right next to these ones for the same reason, just long-range punish and a lightweight weapon. Actually, you know, I would say the Tempest over here, same thing, just big old punchy AoE. Not many finishers will give you that big punchy AoE. Actually goes right next to Crimson Reach, again, the same reasons. Thunderwave, just, I'm going to class that as a standard elemental punish. It just doesn't have the range of the Nightblade or anything like that, so it's alright, but it's going to go over there. Let's see, Cherry Ronde also is going up over here, right next to these two. This one I feel is a bit of an unsung hero there. So ice punishes are great in general. You know, there's a lot of flying stuff that's ice, which means that a lot of your sword users will typically be next to wind units. There's a lot of sections of the game where this is particularly handy, especially in San Bronze and such, where there's just a lot of flappies around. And additionally, it's worth noting that it can ignore vertical tolerance. So since it attacks in an AoE, it is a multi-hitter, and additionally can completely ignore verticality, so if there's a unit on top of a wall, you can stand next to the wall and hit it using this thing. Great stuff. Let's see, Gaia Sunder is going to inflict Weaken. That's going to go under a defensive play. It's a bit more situational, but it does shut down endgame beast units. Dancing Sprite, pretty standard elemental punish. We'll put it up there. Then we get over to the... Oh, right. So, Charm Move goes up there. So, Imperial Shot, the stop almost never lands on this, so I'm going to put it under the elemental punish pile. The Charm Shot on the bows, the Flaming Blast, pretty darn consistent. Lots of ice units, it's, again, fire finishers. Most of the rest of them are short range. Like Flaming Blast is one tile, you've got Crimson Reach that's a couple tiles away, Sun Blossom is one tile, and then your crossbows are typically not necessarily going to be in range, but then you've got your Flaming Blast that's just got insane reach, and potentially might charm them. A lot of times those are also going to be support units, which means that they are now your support units. It's just incredible value. So I would say probably personally I would class that right next to, just like right up here. Actually, if I were to personally class these, it probably would look a little bit more like here. Let's put Armageddon straight up top. Actually, no, I still think Vile Wound is better. So Vile Wound, then Armageddon, then Flaming Blast, then Howling Rage, then Death Wail. Actually, probably above Death Wail, I would probably put... no, Overwhelm is pretty expensive. We're going to leave it over here. Yeah, it's looking about right. I would say probably like this, maybe, as far as personal preference goes. Obviously, these things are all subjective, but as far as I see it, strategically, that's a bit more useful in my book. Now, Knight Commander Finishers. Okay, so we got the, I think it's a, what is that, a breach effect that you get off of his. We can put that as a defensive play, I suppose. Realistically, if you got this, you don't need it. Solid standouts as far as Angel of Death. That thing is fucked. Like near guaranteed petrification on a massive AoE crushing move. Not crushing is in the type, I just mean like it's just rocks that annihilate everything. Two things to note, by the way, on Knight Commander finishers. You can get these, you can use them only through the Knight Commander weapons, but additionally their element doesn't get the bonus. So like even though this is Earth, it's only for show. It isn't like actually hitting with Earth. The Whip finisher, honestly I don't like it. As strange as this sounds. It's just next to Armageddon. Sure, the chance for a charm is nice, but like, freaking Armageddon, dude. I don't really like that one. We got the weaken effect off of the fists, so this is a great defensive play. We've got leaden off of the Cyclone Saber, but it's also multi-hitter, so or not Cyclone Saber. What the hell is this? Crushing Blow. So I'll put that over here. Fiery Death with I think this is the one with the breach effect. Yeah, that's a solid standout because that thing's terrifying. We got the dude. Martim, you suck. It's just Venomous Strike off the sword. Like, it's just... it's basically a way more difficult to get version of a Vile Wound. Like, congratulations, you've downgraded one of the coolest and most easily available moves. Then, yeah, Apocalypse is right next to Armageddon. It's still not as good as Vile Wound, but... Apocalypse permanently reduces a unit's level by 10. The only way to get rid of it is to let the unit get downed and then revived. So, Devolve is just a debuff that is unremovable by any standard means. It's ridiculous, but the amount of effort that it takes to actually get a hold of it is preposterous. But yeah, so we're going to leave it over there. As far as the other ones, like, I could see people making use of these finishers. These ones are great as far as the Knight Commander weapons go. Like, Devolve in particular makes an absolute cakewalk of Coda 4. If you're looking to grind Coda 4 weapons, pick up, just attempt to go for the Ambition first, so that you could go get this finisher. And then, yeah, for the other ones, like, this will just completely trivialize that fight, because while levels in general are not crazy as far as power goes, as far as defense, especially in your case, that matters a lot. Never, like, run evade. Honestly, nullify strike on a lord. Like, if you see Tardy getting close, put on some kind of physical shield, because that thing, you can't get rid of it. So it can completely screw you over an hour into a Coda 4 attempt, so just so you know. Venomous Strike and the Charm Finisher on the Whip, all well and good, but it's no Armageddon. Like, it's nice, but I'm sorry, you get so far outclassed by Armageddon. The amount of effort required to get it compared with, like, just give a guy a whip and have them go to town. Yeah, I gotta judge that one pretty harshly. Like, yeah, technically, it sure would be a solid defensive play, but, like, the amount of amazing for something like Infinite Armageddon next to you can use this once to maybe get a charm, whereas this charm is available on anyone with a short bow at long range. Like, I'm sorry, yeah, no. That's nice. I'm never gonna use you. But anyway, alright, so that's about that. Yes, it is entirely subjective. Go ahead and throw out insults where you will. But as far as I'm concerned, that's how this thing ends up breaking down. So yeah, that's about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.